This is your Chapter 9, Part 2 test review. Number 1, a magnet is in the shape of a trapezoid. The dimensions of the magnet are shown. What is the area of the magnet? So, if we remember our steps, I'll write them up here for solving these. Step 1 is to identify your shape. Identify the shape. Step 2 is to write down the formula. Step 3 is to substitute. And step 4 is to calculate or solve, however you want to say that. Okay, so on number 1, step 1 is to identify the shape. Well, if you don't know it just by looking at the picture, it also tells you in the question, so the shape is a trapezoid. Step 2 says write down your formula. You noticed over here I have a space for you to write down your formula, so that's step 2. Step 3 says substitute. I have a place for that. And step 4 says calculate or solve, and I have a place for that. So I've kind of set this up for you. So we're going to always highlight our shape if it tells us, and then we'll follow our steps. Formula, substitute, and solve. So back to number 1. The formula for a trapezoid, and you can always look at your star chart for this, is area equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So step 3 is going to be a substitute. So I'm going to plug in numbers from my picture into the correct places over here. So does the picture tell me the area? Over here, no, the picture does not tell me the area. So A stays the same. There's nothing I can plug in for that. 1/2. And then base 1 and base 2. So remember, your bases are always the sides that are parallel to one another. It may not necessarily be on the bottom. This could be rotated. So you're just looking for the lines that are parallel to one another. And that would be these two sides right here. So I have 8 and 5 as my bases. And then the height always meets the base at a 90-degree angle. So I'm looking for that 90-degree angle symbol. So that means my height is 6. Now I'm going to solve, so I'm going to follow my Pemdas rules. According to Pemdas, I do parentheses first. So area is 1/2. 8 plus 5 is 13, and I still have 6 out here. Now we're down to just multiplication, so I can really go in whatever order I want to. I'm going to do 13 times 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 1 plus 1 is 7. So now I have 1/2 times 78, so 1/2 times 78. Remember, multiplying something by 1/2 is the same as dividing it by 2. So I'm going to take 1/2 of 78, or divide it by 2. 2 goes into 7 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down your 8. 2 goes into 18 9 times exactly. So the area of this trapezoid is 39 centimeters squared. Area is always squared, and you have to make sure you put your units, whatever they give you, squared. If you don't, that 39 could represent anything. So please make sure that you put your units and make sure they're squared. All right, number 2, what is the base of a parallelogram with height of 7.8 inches and an area of 70.2 square inches? So I've identified my shape. It's a parallelogram. Step 2 is to write down my formula. This can be found on your star chart, or if you know it, its area is base times height. Now I'm going to substitute in what I know. It says the parallelogram has a height of 7.8 inches, so under H I have 7.8. Has an area of 70.2. So under A for area, I'm going to write 70.2. And I bring down my equal sign, and I still have a B there. So to solve this, I'm going to cut it in half. I need to isolate my variable, so I need to get B by itself. Right now, 7.8 is multiplying by B, so I'm going to divide, because opposite of multiplying is dividing. Oops, 7.8, that's messy, sorry. Those will cancel. I'm left with B on this side, and I need to do my math over here. So 70.2 divided by 7.8. You cannot have a decimal outside your house. Remember, the fox chases the rabbit. I'm going to jump once here, so I'm going to jump once here also, and then take my decimal straight up. I'm going to rewrite this just so it's a little more easy to see. And I have 78 on the outside, and I have 702 with my decimal right here. So will 78 go into 7? No. Will 78 go into 70? No. Will 78 go into 702? Yes. I'm going to try multiplying by 9. 9 times 8 is 72. 9 times 7 is 63. Plus 7 is 70. So looky there. It goes in, 9 times exactly. Minus 702 is 0. So 70.2 divided by 7.8 is 9. So B, the base, is 9 inches. Please make sure you put your units. Number 3, determine the area of the triangle at the right. So I've identified my shape. It's a triangle. The formula for a triangle, which can be found on your star chart, or if you know it, is 1/2 base times height. Now let's substitute in what we know. I do not know the area. It doesn't tell me. So I can keep that. That's my 1/2. The base of this triangle, remember the base and the height always meet at a 90-degree angle. So here's my 90-degree angle. So that means that is my base and that is my height right there. I'm looking for the two sides that touch the 90-degree angle. So my base is 30. My height is 24. This 25 is extra information. It represents this side of the triangle right here, but this can't be the height because it's slanted. Remember, when you go to the doctor and they ask you to stand up straight and tall so they can measure your height. You're not going to lean over because that's not going to tell you how tall you really are. All right, so now let's solve. Because we're down to multiplication, we can really work in whatever way we want to. I'm going to do 30 times 24. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 3 is 12. Add a 0. 2 times 0 is 0. And 2 times 3 is 6. Add down, you get 720. So now I have 1/2 times 720. The most common mistake people make is forgetting this 1/2 right here. You cannot forget that 1/2, guys. It doesn't drop off the face of the earth. All you did was multiply here. You still have the 1/2. So now I need to take half of 720, so that means I'm going to divide it by 2. 2 goes into 7 3 times. That's 6. When you subtract, you get 1. Bring down your 2. 2 goes into 12 6 times. That's 12. 12 minus 12 is 0. Bring down your 0. And 2 goes into 0 0 times. So the area of this triangle is 360 meters squared. All right, number 4. Elena is making a parallelogram. There's my form or my shape. A parallelogram shaped flag out of fabric. It has a height of 3 3/5 feet and a base of 4 1/4 feet. What is the area of Elena's flag? So my shape is a parallelogram, so that means the formula is base times height. So area equals base times height. I'm going to plug in what I know. So let's see, the area does not tell me, that's what I'm looking for. The base, B, is 4 1/4, so I have 4 1/4. And the height is 3 3/5, so 3 3/5 instead of H. Now that I plugged in what I know, I just need to solve by multiplying these together. So I'm going to do it 2 ways. The first way I'm going to do it is with fractions, and the second way I'm going to do it is with decimals. So you just figure out what works best for you and go with that each time. In order to multiply these fractions, I have to change them into improper fractions. So remember to do that. We multiply and then add. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17. So this is 17 over 4. Denominator stays the same. And then on the next one, 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 3 is 18. So that's 18 over 5. And then to multiply these, it's top times top, bottom times bottom. 4 times 5 is 20, and then I need to do 17 times 18. 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 5 is 13. Add a 0. 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 1 is 1. Add down, you have 6, 10, and that makes 3. So this is 306 over 20. Now I cannot leave this as an improper fraction, so I need to change it back to a mixed number. So we're going to do our around the world. 306 divided by 20. 20 won't go into 3, but it goes into 30 one time. 1 times 20 is 20. Subtract, you get 10. Bring down your 6. 20 goes into 106 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. Subtract, you get 6. Now that I have no more numbers to bring down, I'm going to do my around the world. Whole number, numerator, denominator. So that means 15 and 6/20ths. 15 and 6/20ths is my mixed number, but I need to simplify my fraction. I can divide both of those by 2. So that means that's 15, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. That is in simplest form, and this is feet squared. So that's the way you can do it with fractions, or we can do it with decimals. So area is 4 1/4 times 3 3/5. Remember to change a fraction to a decimal, we typo. So I'm going to bring down my whole number, and then I'm going to typo 1/4. Top in, bottom out. Add your decimal, take it up into 0. 4 won't go into 1, but it goes into 10 2 times. That would be 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Add a 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times exactly. So this is 4.25. I'm going to bring down my 3, and I'm going to typo my 3/5. A decimal, take it up into 0. 5 won't go into 3, but it goes into 36 times exactly. So this is 0.6. Now all I need to do is multiply my decimals. So I have 4.25 times 3.6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Add a 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And 3 times 4 is 12. Add down, you get 0, 10. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 7 is 13. 1 plus 2 is 5, and 1. And I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So area is 15.3. You can drop off those zeros. Feet squared. If you were to change 3/10 to a decimal, you'll get 0.3. So those are the same answers. All right, number 5. A triangle, so there's my shape right there, has a base of 21 inches and an area of 189 square inches. What is the height? So I'm looking for the height. So my formula for a triangle is 1/2 base times height. This problem tells me that I have a base of 21 inches, so under B I have 21. The area is 189, so under A I have 189 equals 1/2. And I do not know the height, so height stays the same. The first thing I'm going to do is combine everything I can on the right side. I'm going to simplify it as much as possible. So I need to combine 1/2 and 21. So what is half of 21? Well, that means I need to divide. 2 goes into 2 one time. Minus 2 is 0. Bring down my 1. 2 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 2 is 0. 1 minus 0 is still 1. I need to continue, so I'm going to add a decimal, take it up into 0. Now I can bring it down. 2 goes into 10, 5 times exactly. So I have 189 equals, when I combine those, I got 10.5, and I still have my h. Now I have a one-step equation I can solve, so I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to isolate my variable. Opposite of multiplying is dividing, so I'm going to divide both sides by 10.5. These cancel. I'm left with h on the right side. Now I need to do 189 divided by 10.5. Can't have a decimal outside my house, so I'm going to move it once. But what I do outside, I have to do inside. There is not a decimal here, so I'm going to add one at the end. Remember, decimals look like periods. Periods go at the end of your sentence. That way I can move that one time. And I can fill in a 0. I'm going to rewrite this. So 105 into 1890. The decimal's right here. All right, well, 105 go into 1. No. Will it go into 18? No. 189? Yes. one time. I subtract 105, you get 84. Bring down your 0. You need to do 105 into 840, so I'm going to try multiplying by 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4, and 8 times 1 is 8. So that goes in 8 times. So my answer right here is 18, so that means the height is 18 inches. This is not squared because it's not the area, so it's just 18 inches. Number 6, determine the area of the parallelogram. So that is my shape, a parallelogram. The formula for a parallelogram is base times height. I'm going to plug in what I know. So the base of this parallelogram is 10 inches. So I have 10. The height is 5. I'm looking for that right angle. And then to solve this, I'm going to do 10 times 5, which is 50 inches squared. Easy peasy. Number 7, determine the area of the figure. Well, it doesn't tell us the name of the figure in the problem like they have been, but if I look over here, that's a square. And I know to find the area of a square, it's just base times height. So the formula is base times height. Substitute in, the base is 15, and the height is 15. So to solve this, I'm going to multiply those together. 15 times 15. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 plus 2 is 7. Add a 0. 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 1 is 1. Add down. You get 225 inches squared. Number 8, determine the area of the figure. Well, again, it does not tell us what the name of this figure is, so I have to figure it out. Looking at this, I see I have one set of parallel sides. These two sides are not parallel, so they can't be a parallelogram, because a parallelogram means all sides are parallel, or opposite sides are parallel. Parallelograms also kind of look like a rectangle that's leaning, or a square leaning, something like that. This is definitely a trapezoid, okay? One set of parallel sides. So the formula for area of a trapezoid is A equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So I'm going to plug in what I know. It does not tell me the area, so that stays the same. It asks me to find it up here. My bases are my parallel sides, so that's going to be 10 and 6. 10 plus 6. And then the height, I'm looking for that right angle, so that means my height is going to be 4. According to Pemdas, we're going to do our parentheses first. So my A equals 1/2 stays the same. 10 plus 6 is 16, and then I still have my 4. Now that we're done multiplication, we can really work in whatever order we want to. We could do half of 16, we could do half of 4, we could do 16 times 4, and then take half of that. Just because that's what I've been doing, I'm going to stick to that. So I'm going to do 16 times 4. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 1 plus 2 is 6. So now I have area equals 1/2, and 16 times 4 is 64. Now I'm going to take half of 64, so that means to divide it by 2. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 minus 2 is 6. Subtract, you get 0. Bring down your 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times exactly. So the area of this trapezoid is 32, and it doesn't tell me any units like inches or anything like that, so I use a U for units and then squared. All right, number 9. Write and solve an equation to determine the height of the parallelogram. So there's my formula. If the base is 1.3 centimeters and the area is 2.73 square centimeters. So my shape is a parallelogram, so the formula for that is base times height. Now we're going to substitute in what we know. So it tells me the base is 1.3, so instead of B I have 1.3. And the area is 2.73, so I have 2.73 underneath area. I do not know the height that asked me to determine that, so that's my H. That stays the same. Now I'm going to solve. So this is down to a one-step equation. There's nothing I can combine over here, so I'm going to cut it in half. Opposite of multiplying is dividing, so I'm going to divide by 1.3 on both sides. Those cancel, I'm left with h over here. So 2.73 divided by 1.3. I cannot have a decimal outside my house, so I'm going to move it once. I'm going to move it once inside also and take it up. I'm going to rewrite this. 273, and my decimals between my 7 and my 3. All right, will 13 go into 2? No. Will it go into 27? I think 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. So yes, it goes in 2 times without going over, and that's 26. 27 minus 26 is 1. Bring down my 3. And 13 goes into 13 one time. So my height is 2.1 centimeters. This is not square because it's not the area, it's just the height. Number 10. A triangular support, so triangle, on the bottom of a bookshelf has a base of 11 3/4 inches and a height of 18 inches. What is the area of the support? So this is a triangle, so my formula is 1/2 base times height. Let's substitute in what we know. It tells us the base is 11 3/4 and the height is 18. So substituting in for base and height, I'm trying to find the area. If you remember from a previous question on the first page, this one over here, you could use fractions or decimals. I prefer decimals, so I'm going to change my 3/4 to a decimal. So I'm going to typo, top in, bottom out. 4 won't go into 3, but it goes into 30 7 times. That's 28. When you subtract, you get 2. Add a 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times exactly. So I'm going to rewrite this. Area is 1/2. And instead of 11 3/4, now I have 11.75 times 18. Okay, so multiplication, you can go in any order you want to. A lot of people will probably take half of 18 because that's just smaller numbers. But I'm going to stick to what I've been doing the entire time. I'm going to do 11.75 times 18. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 7 is 56, plus 4 is 60. 8 times 1 plus 6 is 14. And 8 times 1 plus 1 is 9. Add your 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. And 1 times 1 is 1. Add down. I get 21150, and I have 2 numbers behind the decimal. So now I have area is 1/2. I did these two. I got 211.50. So now I need to take half of 211.50. So that means I'm going to divide it by 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down my 1. 2 goes into 1 0 times. Minus 0 is still 1. Bring down my next one. 2 goes into 11 5 times. That would be 10. 11 minus 10 is 1. Bring down your 5. 2 goes into 15 7 times. That would be 14. 15 minus 14 is 1. Bring down your 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Exactly. So my area is 105.75 inches squared. Number 11, a trapezoid has an area of 225 square feet. Write and solve an equation to determine the height of the trapezoid if the bases are 32 feet and 18 feet. So I've identified my shape as a trapezoid, so the formula for that is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Now I'm going to substitute in what I know. It tells me the area is 225, so under A I have 225 equals 1/2. Then it tells me the bases are 32 and 18, so instead of B1 and B2, I have 32 and 18. And I'm trying to figure out the height, so my H stays the same. Now I need to solve this, so the first thing I'm going to do is simplify everything I can on the right-hand side. So I'm going to do my parentheses first. So 225 equals 1/2. 32 plus 18 8 plus 2 is 10, and 1 plus 3 plus 3 is 5. So that's 50, and then I have h. I still can simplify over here, so I need to take half of 50. That's 50 divided by 2. 2 goes into 5 2 times. Minus 4 is 1. Bring down your 0. And 2 into 10 is 5 times. So now I have 225 equals, when I do half of 50, I get 25. And then h. Now I have a one-step equation, so I'm going to cut it in half. Opposite of multiplying is dividing, so I'm going to divide both sides by 25. That leaves me with h on the right-hand side. I need to do 225 divided by 25. 25 won't go into 2 or 22, but it will go into 225. So let's try and figure out how many times. Whenever I see 25 out here, I always think of quarters. So how many quarters fit in $2.25? Well, I know there's 4 quarters in $1. So that means there's 8 quarters in $2. So if I add another quarter to that, that should be 9. Let's double check. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 4 is 22. So yes, 9 times. So the height of this trapezoid should be 9 feet. Number 12, determine the volume of the prism. Okay, so this is a rectangular prism. The formula for volume of a prism is big B times H, where big B stands for area of the base. So if I look at the base of this rectangular prism right here, I need to find the area of the shaded region. So to find the area of this rectangle, it is, let's see, big B, the area of this is going to be 8 times 9.4. I need to multiply those together. And then I'm going to multiply by the height of the prism, which is 10.7. So let's find the area of the base, big B. So that's going to be 9.4 times 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 9 is 72. Plus 3 is 75. And I'm going to move my decimal 1 time. So now I have volume is 75.2 times 10.7. So let's multiply these two numbers together. 75.2 and 10.7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 1 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 3 is 52. Add 0. 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 5 is 0, and 0 times 7 is 0. I'm going to add 2 zeros. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 7 is 7. Now we're going to add down. 4 plus 0 is 4. 6 plus 0 plus 0 is 6. 2 plus 0 plus 2 is 4. 5 plus 0 plus 5 is 10. And 1 plus 7 is 8. I'm going to move my decimal 1 2 times. 1, 2. So that means the volume of this prism is 804.64 feet cubed. Okay, volume is always cubed because it's a 3D shape. How much does it take to fill up the inside of the entire 3D shape? All right, last page. Number 13, determine the volume of the prism. So I know the formula for volume of a rectangular prism is big B times H, where big B stands for area of the base. So that's the bottom down here. I need to find the area of that base, which is a rectangle, so I'm going to multiply 9 times 4. And then after I figure that out, I'm going to multiply by the height, which is 6. So I'm going to do parentheses first. 9 times 4 is 36. Now I have 36 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. So the volume of this prism is 216 yards cubed. Volume is cubed, area is squared. Area is of a 2D shape, and volume is of a 3D shape. So that's where your squared and cubed come from. Number 14, a rectangular prism, so there's my shape, has a volume of 1,134 cubic meters, a length of 18 meters, and a width of 7. What is the height? So I know this is a rectangular prism, and I'm trying to find the and it gives me the volume. So volume is big B times H. Tells me the volume is 1,134. So under V I have 1,134 equals big B. Let's see if I can draw one of these bad boys. Probably not very well. So here's my base down here. It has a length of 18 and a width of 7. I am looking for the height. So to find big B, I would be multiplying 18 times 7. And then I need to figure out the height. So again, I'm going to simplify everything I can on the right-hand side. So I need to do 18 times 7. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 1 plus 5 is 12. So now I have 1,134 equals 126, and I still have H. I can now solve my one-step equation by cutting it in half. Now isolate my variable, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide by 126. Those cancel. I'm left with H on the right side. I need to do 1,134 divided by 126. So will 126 go into 1? No. 11? No. 113? No. It will go into 1,134. We just have to figure it out. That's pretty big, so I'm going to try times 9. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 5 is 23, and 9 times 1 is 9, plus 2 is 11. Excuse me. So right there it goes in exactly 9 times, so minus 1,134 is 0. So my height is going to be 9 meters. It's not cubed, this is not the volume. Number 15, find the missing base length. So our first step is to always identify our shape. It does not tell us our shape, but because I see I only have one set of parallel lines, I know that this is a trapezoid, and the formula for a trapezoid is A equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So I'm trying to find the missing base down here. This is B. We'll call that B1. Okay. So let's plug in what we know. It tells me the area is 78. So under A I have 78, and then my 1/2. I do not know B1, so that's going to stay there. But B2 is up here, the other base, so plus 8. And then the height right here is my right angle, so that means 6 is my height. I need to simplify everything I can on the right-hand side before I solve a one-step equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of 6. So half of 6. So I have 78 equals, half of 6 is 3. And then in parentheses, I still have B1 plus 8. I need to simplify this even more. So let's cut it in half because I need to get rid of this 3. Well, I know a number next to parentheses means to multiply. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. These 3 cancel. I'm left with B1 plus 8 on this side. Need to do 78 divided by 3. 3 goes into 7 2 times. That would be 6. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down your 8. And 3 goes into 18 6 times exactly. So now I have 26 on this side. I can cut it in half again. In order to get B1 by itself, I'm going to do the opposite of adding, which is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Can't do 6 minus 8, so I'm going to borrow. 16 minus 8 is 8, and then I have a 1. So B1 is 18. Sorry, 18, 8. Throw that in there. All right, last one. Soraya has 2 square baking dishes. So I'm going to draw my square baking dishes. One has a side length of 5 inches, and the other has a side length of 11 inches. What is the difference? I know difference means to subtract in math, of the areas. So I have to find the area of both of these. What's the area of these? Well, I know one has a side length of 5, and the other has a side length of 11. But since these are square baking dishes, that means all the sides are the same. So if this side's 5, so is this one. This side's 11, so it's this one. We know to find the area of a square, it's base times height. So I need to do base times height. So 5 times 5 is 25. And 11 times 11, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. Add a 0. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. Add down, you get 121. So now that I know the area of each of these, I can find the difference now. So I'm going to do 121 minus 25. Can't do 1 minus 5, so I'm going to borrow. 11 minus 5 is 6. Can't do 1 minus 2, so I'm going to borrow. 11 minus 2 is 9. That's 0. I don't have anything left. So the differences in the areas, the difference is 96 inches squared because it's area, so that's the difference. 96 inches squared. So to recap everything that we've done, on this review, I want you to notice on every single problem throughout here, every single one of these, we followed certain steps. We figured out what our shape was. Then I made you write down the formula. Then I made you substitute in right below it. And then I made you solve. It is very important that you follow these steps to keep track of what you're doing and to make sure you put the right numbers in the right places. And that you have the correct formula. I should see on everybody's test tomorrow that you are identifying your shape. You're writing down the formula. You're plugging numbers in right below it, and then you're showing me the math to solve it. I need to see that on every one. All right? So study for your test tonight, and good luck tomorrow.